Good morning, everyone. In a moment, we will be singing together, "Morning is come, arise and greet the day." Paul is going like this. Maybe we should all go like this. Let's all do that together. Feels good, doesn't it? At home, it feels good, right? Arise and greet the day. And there are some days that it's easier to arise than others. And so I am so grateful that there are so many people here in Unity Hall and so many people in the online pews, that we may create community in the ways that we have learned in the past 2 years, all of the ways that we have learned. And this morning, in this Trans-Visibility Week, we are reminded of the ways that we create community with all kinds of people. And so we do so this morning with great joy as ever, as we say, as we do, welcome to All Souls, where all souls are welcome. You are joyfully called this morning to worship. I invite you to rise in body and or in spirit, and we will join our voices in singing "Morning Has Come." What you are seeing on those slides is the new and ever-evolving pride flag that includes in all of the stripes of the rainbows now a brown and a black stripe, includes the triangle that intersects with the flag, in which we remember and hold close in this big community our trans kin as well. So that's different. We are, of course, worshiping where we live and work on Mohegan and Niantic land, and we honor those ancestors and those who carry those traditions today as we pass the peace. But first, if you are new today in Unity Hall for the first time, I invite you to raise your hand so that we may welcome you appropriately. Welcome, we see you, welcome, welcome, right in front, welcome, good to see you. If you are worshiping in the online pews, indicate in the chat that you are new so that you may be greeted as well. Let us, last week for the first time doing this without masks, we did elbows. Let's stick with it again today. I know you're all hugging outside of this moment, but let's do that again. Feel free to move around the cabin. Peace be with you. John and Kate, there's some seats right up here if you want to come up. That's what happens when you're late. Come on up, come on, Myrna. No one cares. We're just happy you're here. We're just happy you're here. And I just have to say that you can move around the cabin, got a big laugh, but I can't take credit for it. Caitlin said it last week, but there was too much noise for any of you to really hear it. So I knew that you didn't hear it last week, and I knew it'd get a good laugh this week, but we must thank Caitlin for the great. So next time you see her, tell her how funny she is. Yeah.
Each week, as a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, we light the chalice as a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve in the spirit of love. And each week we light a candle of peace for communities around the world. In this Trans Week of visibility, peace and jubilation for trans communities, for the people of Poland, Romania, Moldova, Hungary, and Slovakia, who among them have taken in the 3 million Ukrainian refugees. Our prayers are unceasing.
And now I think we can let the kids in. Here they are, for our story for all ages. Here they come. Come on in, everyone. Come on in. All the way in, all the way in. Here we go. Right there you go. Perry is telling the story this morning, and he's not here yet, so keep vamping, Bill. And all the kids will come on in. Here we go. There you go. Excellent.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today's story is I Am Jazz by Jessica Herthal and Jazz Jennings. Now, you might have noticed when I read the authors that there was one of the authors named Jazz, and that's because this story is about a real person, Jazz. And so as we're listening to this story, you might think about, what was Jazz feeling at the different times in the story? When were things really difficult or hard, and when would Jazz have been feeling joy? I am Jazz. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver, and my third favorite color is green. Here are some of my other favorite things: dancing, singing, backflips, drawing, soccer, swimming, makeup, and pretending I'm a pop star. Most of all, I love mermaids. Sometimes I even wear a mermaid tail in the pool. My best friends are Samantha and Casey. We always have fun together. We like high heels and princess gowns, or cartwheels and trampolines. But I'm not exactly like Samantha and Casey. I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was very little, and my mom would say, "You're such a good boy," I would say, "No, Mama, good girl." At first, my family was confused. They'd always thought of me as a boy. As I got a little older, I hardly ever played with trucks or tools or superheroes, only princesses and mermaid costumes. My brothers told me this was girl stuff. I kept right on playing. My sister says I was always talking to her about my girl thoughts and my girl dreams, and how one day I would be a beautiful lady. She would giggle and say, "You're a funny kid." Sometimes my parents let me wear my sister's dresses around the house. But whenever we went out, I had to put on my boy clothes again. This made me mad. Still, I never gave up trying to convince them. Pretending I was a boy felt like telling a lie. Then, one amazing day, everything changed. Mom and Dad took me to meet a new doctor who asked me lots and lots of questions. Afterward, the doctor spoke to my parents, and I heard the word transgender for the very first time. That night at bedtime, my parents both hugged me and said, "We understand now. Be who you are. We love you no matter what." This made me smile and smile and smile. Mom and Dad told me I could start wearing girl clothes to school and growing my hair long. They even let me change my name to Jazz. Being Jazz felt much more like being me. Mom said that being Jazz would make me different from the other kids at school, but that being different is okay. What's important, she said, is that I'm happy with who I am. Being Jazz caused some other people to be confused too, like the teachers at school. At the beginning of the year, they wanted me to use the boys' bathroom and play on the boys' team in gym class. But that didn't feel normal to me at all. I was so happy when the teachers changed their minds. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. Even today, there are kids who tease me or call me by a boy name or ignore me altogether. This makes me feel crummy. Then I remember that the kids who get to know me usually want to be my friend. They say I'm one of the nicest girls at school. And there's Jazz. We are all who we are. And what we all want, is to be embraced and loved for who we are. Kids, can you all say, I am? I am. And sometimes that's all you have to say. That's enough. I am. And you know who you are. And that's good. So we are going to go to our classes now, and we're going to get to know each other a little bit more and who we are, and we're going to say to each other, that's good, and affirm each other. So if you would all sing us out with Trees of the Field, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Story. We shall go out. Oh, good. There we go. Yeah, there goes Elizabeth. All right, we begin. Part of what we do on Sunday morning when we gather for worship is to remind ourselves what our commitments are to each other as a community. And one of those commitments is to pay attention to each other's lives, the joy and the sorrow and the concern that we hold through these days. And so we will begin by opening this circle for all who are here in Unity Hall to light a candle of intention if you are so moved. And those of you who are worshiping in the online pews, this is the moment for you to write in the chat your joys and sorrows that will be shared aloud here in Unity Hall. And so we open this time for you to come forward. So we'll begin with what has been shared here in the book, which is in the lobby every Sunday. Angela Mock asks that we hold her brother Carl in our hearts. Today is his 45th birthday, and he died sadly when he was 18. That grief just never goes away. Angela asked that we also light a candle for her sister, Melody. She is having some serious health challenges, and Angela is accompanying her to some very important appointments this week, so we hold Angela in our hearts as well. Mary asks for prayers for the 3-year-old in Preston. Some of us may have read about that, who suffered a spinal cord injury. Nick and Claire ask for prayers for their 43-year-old niece, Brandy, who is struggling through a second round of chemotherapy, despite minimum chances given. Oh, bless her heart, and your whole family. That's tough, so young. And from the online pews, let's see. There are 42 households on the pews this morning, and that's a lot of people from home. Peter expresses joy to be experiencing this beautiful season of varying weather. Oh, ever the optimist, Peter Cooper. And budding plants. Carol Bunting is asking for healing thoughts for her brother-in-law, John, also in the throes of cancer treatment. Radha Richmond Covey offers her sorrow, as all of us are joining her in that, for all of the people of Ukraine. Janet Beebe, so happy to have spent her mother's 95th birthday together with her family. Nori is expressing gratitude. Here's news I was going to offer later, but I'll share now. We have just hired a new choir director, Catherine Aaron. She is spectacular. I can't wait for all of you to meet her. It's going to be a new and joyful chapter here at All Souls. So thank you, Nori, and thank you, Catherine, for saying yes. So wonderful. Cher offers that her gratitude. She has a new brace and cane. She's moving well. She's thankful to everyone who has supported her with meals and cards and phone calls. We can't wait to see you in Unity Hall again, Cher. George Fargo from Maine is saying how great life is in general. And let's see, Maria, you're in 2 places at once. Yeah, Maria's on her phone and sitting in front of me. So we have the power. So Maria's niece's stepfather died unexpectedly this week. A funny man Chuck was, and loved by so many. He celebrated 25 years of marriage just 2 weeks ago. Oh, bless his heart. Bless your whole family. And Karen Jones asked for prayers for her brother Brian, who as a police chaplain is faced with some very grave circumstances. Hard work. It's hard work. Oh, life, right? Let us enter into a communion of prayer and meditation together as we take in all of the joy and the sorrow that has been expressed. Spirit of life and of love, coursing between us and between here and online, rising up in hearts and minds and souls. We give thanks for the coming of spring and the bewildering weather that comes with it. We are reminded that things change all the time, and that change is part of who we are and what we embrace in this life. We offer condolences, support, empathy, sympathy to all who are grieving, who are in pain, who are worried, who are depressed, who are addicted. We hold all of these here together. And for those who arrive jubilant, triumphant, joyful, may those expressions of life glowing be as a balm for those who are met here in their sorrow. We give thanks for this day, for all that it will bring. We give thanks and we say together, amen. Amen. We enter into silence together. We'll close this circle with Lee and Bill.
The table, leftovers saved, wash the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart bleeds, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts. Spirit's true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can live in a country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
Lee, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. The slide that you're seeing there is a photograph of the writer of this reading, Will Larkins, as he led his high school's walkout. Florida's Don't Say Gay bill will hurt teens like me. Will Larkins, New York Times, March 15th, 2022. My life changed the summer before 7th grade. A girl at an art summer camp turned to me on the first day and said, "Are you LGBTQ?" She explained what each letter meant and showed me pictures of RuPaul on her phone. It felt as if a weight had been taken off my shoulders. The realization that I wasn't the only one saved my life. When I came home from camp, I became fascinated with learning more about queer culture. I read about Georgia Black, a Black trans woman who lived close to where I live now in the early 1900s. And I learned that in pre-colonial times, more than 150 indigenous tribes acknowledged third gender as their community, and 3 to 5 gender roles: female, male, two-spirit female, two-spirit male, and transgender. I realized how common the experience of falling outside of the gender binary was. As I learned about the history and culture of my community, I grew to understand and love myself. Education didn't just give me a sense of self-worth, but also the knowledge of a community and lifeline there for countless young people. LGBTQ teenagers are 4 times as likely to attempt suicide as their straight counterparts. According to the Trevor Project, a crisis intervention and suicide prevention organization for young gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, teenagers who learned about LGBTQ issues or people in school were 23% less likely to commit suicide. We have a mental health crisis in the queer community, and Governor DeSantis and the Republican Party want to outlaw the solution. On February 28th, I spoke out against the bill on the Florida Senate floor, and on Monday, my friend Maddie Zornick and I led a walkout of more than 500 students at our high school. Republican lawmakers have been echoing the idea that parents know what is best for their kids, not the schools. In some cases, that may be true. But parents aren't trained professionals. Unlike schools, they aren't made to follow a set of standards. For many of my friends in dangerous situations, because of their sexuality or gender identity, school has been a space where they can be themselves. Now, under threat of lawsuits, districts, schools, and teachers may be hesitant to talk at all with students about gender identity and sexuality, even if the conversation is age appropriate. The bill also allows the State Commissioner of Education to establish a special magistrate so that prosecuting those in violation of the law would happen much faster than in a normal court. People in support of the bill always ask, why do these subjects need to be taught in schools? To them, I would say that if we understand ourselves and those around us understand us, so many lives will be saved.
The link to that article in its entirety will be in the online manuscript that you can find on our website. It's a remarkable article and a remarkable young person to write it, right? I think he's 16 years old. Really incredible. At the Supreme Court nomination hearing this past week, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked a peculiar question. I'm sure some of you read about this. The Republican senator from Tennessee asked, "Can you provide a definition for the word woman?" So Brown Jackson, apparently confused by the question and considering the context, who could blame her? She nevertheless initially responded by saying very simply, "I'm not a biologist." There's been quite a bit of media coverage about this exchange. And in USA Today, Rebecca Jordan Young, a scientist and gender studies scholar at Barnard College, and, I'm going to brag, my beloved friend, smart and fancy, Beck was quoted as saying this. This is what she said. She said, "I don't want to see this question punted to biology as if science can offer a simple, definitive answer." The rest of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's answer was more interesting, said Beck, and important. Ketanji Brown said, "As a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide." That's the end of the judge's quote. Beck went on. In other words, the nominee said that context matters, which is true in both biology and society. And that's the end of the quote. To which I say thank you and right on, Beck. Context matters. And in this case, that of sex and gender, context is much bigger than biology, much richer, much more interesting, as fascinating as biology is. It is much more complicated. So many of you know that I was an AIDS and sexuality educator and advocate prior to heading to seminary and then here to All Souls. And so I'm going to slip back into that realm and offer a bit of Sexuality Vocabulary 101 to ensure that we're all evenly lined up at the starting line, okay? So, Jesse, here are some of the words we're going to go through. So sex at birth. So when a baby is born, as you all, I'm sure, know, that baby is assigned a particular sex. And we say sex because it's a biological scientific word. And that is either male or female, and that is based only on genitals. But what we know is that some people are born with ambiguous organs, genitals, and so it's not even so clear-cut when a baby is born. But nevertheless, an M or an F is put on every birth certificate. Okay. Gender identity, however, is the internal and deeply held knowledge that each of us have about being male or female. And so these don't always fall into these binaries, this or that, black or white. It is more fluid, it is more complex, and each of us gets to name what our gender identity is. And you can't always tell by looking at someone. You can't always tell. So if someone is transgender, as is Jazz, you heard her story earlier, Jazz knew at a very young age that she was assigned the wrong sex at birth. And so she now identifies as a trans girl or trans woman. Not all trans women identify as trans women. Some identify without the modifier and just as women or girls. Same for trans men. A trans man may identify with the modifier, or they may not. They may identify only as a man or a boy, depending. Transition. So when one understands oneself as a different gender than what you have been assigned at birth, you transition into that new identity, that new understanding of oneself. It's another way that we come of age. All our coming of age youth are here this morning. We say all the time, you come of age again and again and again. And this is one of those ways. And there are different ways. There are social ways. When someone, as Jazz did, told her parents that she felt different, that she was a girl. She told her siblings this, she told her teachers this, she told her friends this. So that is the social way of transitioning, letting the people around you know about this transition. The legal way is to go through the processes that are necessary to change that on a birth certificate, on a passport, on a license. It's the box you check when you are filling out those forms that you have to fill out every time you go to the dentist. I just filled this out 6 months ago, but there you are again, checking off your boxes. And then medical. Some people have hormone replacement therapy, some have surgery, and some do not, either because they don't feel like they want to or because the cost is prohibitive. So the range of ways to transition. Transgender man and transgender woman, I went through. Jesse next. Non-binary people don't identify with either of, so binary meaning, again, this or that, black or white, male, female. So people who understand themselves as non-binary, they don't fall into either of these categories. They understand themselves as moving through. And so non-binary people is the correct way to refer to. And of course, in all of these ways, the best way to refer to an individual is to ask them how they would like to be identified in conversation, in writing. That's the most, if you remember nothing else of these definitions, remember that the best thing to do is to ask any individual how they would like to be referred to, what their names are, et cetera, et cetera. Cisgender, now I learned something in preparing for this. Cis is the Latin word for, let me find it, is the Latin word for on the same side of. Did you know that? I know, isn't that fun? On the same side of. So a cisgender person is someone whose gender identity and expression is the same as the sex that they were assigned at birth. All right? So for example, I am a lesbian. I prefer to identify as queer, truth be told. And I am cisgender because my gender expression and my gender identity is female, as a woman, right? But someone who looks like me could totally mess you up, right? And you'd have, and that's up to me. That's up to me. All right. And then sexual orientation, not to be confused with gender identity or expression. So, for example, a trans man and a trans woman have their own sexual orientation. So if a man is emotionally, socially, romantically, erotically attracted to someone of their same gender, then they're gay, queer, however they identify, and same with a woman. You with me? It's a lot to learn, but this is what is important, is the learning and figuring it out. And we're all gonna mess up all the time. We're all gonna mess up. I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. All right, so you see, context is broad, it's rich, it's interesting, and it changes as the world changes. What we understand today is so different than what was understood when I was working as a sexuality educator 20 years ago. The language changes as we learn more about these complex and nuanced issues. And it's fascinating. And accepting that our understanding of human sexuality changes over time is one way that progressive religionists, such as Unitarian Universalists, commit to supporting queer communities. And we should all feel good about that, however confused you may be right now. You're on your way to learning. So Laverne Cox is a trans woman, an actor, an activist, and hear her wisdom as she says, beyond truth, there is trying. At the end of the day, the question is, what are we going to do? And trying goes a long way, Cox said. And so as a congregation, together, we are helping each other learn about and to understand the proper language and indeed to understand the lives of LGBTQ folks. We're trying to do whatever we can to support each other and the communities that need our visible and public support. We're trying because All Souls needs to be as safe a place as possible, especially for our LGBTQ children and youth. And actually, All Souls youth know more about this topic than, dare I say, every adult in this room. Right? Can I hear an amen from the, oh yes, they're all. I am so sure I'm gonna be critiqued after this for my vocabulary words. I'm so sure, and I'm looking forward to that, right? That's what we're here for. So counted among this year's coming of age class, for those of you who maybe missed that service, is a young trans man, a gender non-binary person, and this group of youth asked that the donation that All Souls always makes to an organization on their behalf for coming of age, they chose the Trevor Project that you heard about in the reading earlier. Yeah, you can give each other a yeah for that. But the deep work and advocacy is for the grown-ups to do. We can't put it on them. It's on us to get this done. And in our trying, we will all, as I said, inevitably make mistakes. We will make mistakes. You will misgender someone. You will call someone who is transitioning by their dead name. And their dead name is the name they no longer use. It's a term that may at first seem jarring to you. Kyle shared with me that it felt jarring to him, that term dead name at first, until Kyle came to feel that his own dead name was no longer associated with who he is, who you are, who Kyle is becoming. And then dead name felt right. But when we make those mistakes, wrong pronoun, dead name, general awkwardness, the best way to handle it is to very simply apologize. Like this. I'm sorry. Let's all try it. I'm sorry. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And then use the correct pronoun, use the correct name, and move on. Don't make the person who you're apologizing to have to take care of you in that moment. When Kyle shared with me and with Reverend Caitlin that he was transitioning, I realized that he wasn't the only one who would be transitioning. Although his own transition would be the one that we would and must continue to center, at the time, though, I knew that the rest of us were about to transition too. From the children Kyle was teaching in faith formation, to the elders who would now have to reckon with a new, and for many of them, a new understanding of gender. All Souls is home to some remarkable elders, people who understand learning as a lifelong activity. Lorraine Allen of blessed memory was one of those. And with Kyle's permission, I share this story that he shared with me in the wake of Lorraine's death in 2020. Soon after Kyle came out as transgender, he came to church one morning and he took his usual seat, which at the time was in the vicinity where Lorraine and her lovely hats would take her place. On this Sunday, Lorraine sat down directly behind Kyle. And in those settling moments before the service begins, Kyle felt Lorraine's hands come down squarely on his shoulders. With all love and sincerity, Lorraine leaned forward and offered this advice to Kyle. She said, "If you're going to be a man, you have to sit up straight." Yeah. I think I laugh as hard as I did the first time I heard this story every time we tell this story, because it's so much about the messy, messy path upon which we make our way to understanding. It was not the most sensitive thing to say. It was, like Lorraine, completely out there. But what Kyle took from that gesture was the love that was offered, despite Lorraine's considerable initial bewilderment. She tried, and in time, she did better. And so how do we as a congregation do better and well in supporting queer folks in general? We offer our whole lives curriculum. It's a sexuality curriculum to our children and youth, beginning in kindergarten, going all the way through senior and high school. OWL was put on hold through the pandemic, but now we're hoping to offer it again in the fall. Hopefully we'll have the volunteers to facilitate it. We make sure that it's known that we are a welcoming congregation, a process Unitarian Universalist congregations go through to make sure there is systemic understanding of the ways of doing church that make being here not only comfortable, but life-giving for LGBTQ folks. Now, All Souls completed that process over 20 years ago, and I think it's time for a refresher. There is a refresher and update that was introduced in 2015, and I think it would behoove us to investigate that. And just as individuals keep trying, we as a congregation keep trying. And that said, a word on trying. Kyle and I had a good conversation about trying, because to Kyle, trying strikes at the heart a little bit like tolerance strikes at the heart. That is, in the context of trans and queer youth especially, and specifically, we can't be so tepid as tolerant or trying. We need to say loud and clear in our words and in our actions that trans youth are whole and holy and loved. To start, we have to be especially careful to use proper names and pronouns. And so I'm going to pause here just for a word on pronouns. And perhaps you're wondering why pronouns are so important now. And there's really just one simple answer. Because there are more pronouns than there have ever been, and each one is meaningful to the person who claims it, and we seek to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person, after all. And if all of us make clear what our pronouns we use, what they say on our name tags, for example, it's just another way that everyone in our community, gender non-binary, trans folks alike, may feel more included. It's just that simple. So we'll go back to it. I was saying that we need to say loud and clear in words and actions that trans youth are whole and holy and loved, because they have become pawns in the backlash to all kinds of progressive progress, but especially progress in queer communities. And conservative religious leaders and conservative politicians feel trans lives, people, these are people we are talking about, are a wedge issue that they can surely count on, like marriage equality was once upon a time, and reproductive health was still. That these will get people to the polls. So as you know, they're working really hard, threatening our children and youth on the state level. According to NBC News, state lawmakers, if you can believe this, have proposed a record of 238 bills that would limit the rights of LGBTQ Americans this year, or more than 3 a day, with about half of them targeting transgender people specifically. That's since January of this year. 238 bills since January of 2022. And even more specifically, these laws affect children and youth when they most need medical, emotional, and psychological support. It doesn't matter that the American Medical Association, the Association of Pediatrics, both oppose these proposed laws on medical grounds and have urged governors to veto these bills. From the reading that Kyle shared, you heard from one youth in Florida who spoke about the real impact of these bills. All of them are bone-chilling. It is tempting to think that living in Connecticut somehow provides shelter to queer folks. It doesn't. Our neighbors to the north in New Hampshire, these bills have been proposed right north of us. And besides which, we are one country, supposedly ensuring liberty and justice for all. And so we need to put our hands over our hearts and commit to doing what our faith asks of us. And again, loudly and clearly. And here's a start. A couple of years ago, Carol and Bob Bunting bought a few dozen buttons that clearly and creatively state one's pronoun. the United Church of Christ, our partners in the creation of our whole lives, created them for congregational use. And they're here for the taking. So they're in the different bowls, there are different pronouns, and you can grab them and put them on your name tag. We're going to start putting pronouns on new name tags going forward, but you can certainly slip yours out of that plastic encasement and write down your pronouns all on your own. Or come and take, the UCC did a very nice job with these buttons. They're really pretty. Or very butch, however you need to go. Right. We also have a few copies of the vocabulary list that I share, but many, many more terms. So we're going to put those on the table for you to take as well. We do want every single trans and queer person to know that they are seen and honored here at All Souls, and further, that they have a place where we can lay our burdens down, and others will help to carry those burdens. That we are not only trying, but more importantly, we are committed to keep learning and not only transitioning, but more importantly, transforming everything possible. And here's the good news. While these horrifying bills are popping up like onion grass in the spring, there's little support for them. The Public Religion Research Institute just last week released results from some research they had done, and they found that support for LGBTQ rights and policies are at a high right now. 8 in 10 people, that's 79%, support laws that protect LGBTQ people from discrimination in jobs, housing, and public accommodation. More, 70% of Americans support same-sex marriage, which is up from 54% when it was passed on a federal level. So that is all good news, but it shows you how twisted these efforts are on the state level. So perhaps this backlash is the last rancid grasp of cruelty, because that's what it's about. It's about the cruelty. Perhaps it is the last gasp of this cruelty and ignorance aimed at queer folks. We can hope. But for now, it's a horror for the most vulnerable among us, children and youth. And so we will remain vigilant. We will keep learning, and most importantly, we will welcome LGBTQ individuals as a homecoming, where the porch light is kept on as a loving welcome. Amen. 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 Okay. We'll keep at it. We'll join our voices in singing, "I Know This Rose Will Open." We'll sing it through twice because it's short. But let us rise in body and or in spirit to sing.
Please join me in these words as we extinguish the chalice. The service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. The chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion.
By the strength of our communion. Reach out, right? This is when we reach out, we are reminded. By the strength of our communion, we will continue to reach out. We will continue to make terrible mistakes. We will learn how to apologize for those mistakes, and then we will be better. And so go in peace and return again with great joy. Amen. Bill, I invite you to be seated. The postlude is from the musical La Cage aux Folles, which is so fun. And La Cage aux Folles, for some of you who may not know, is about a family. And the family includes a child who was raised by drag artists, but is marrying a very conservative person whose father is in politics. So hijinks prevail, but what happens at the end is this finale with drag artists singing, "I am what I am." There's a really great political story that I can't really tell you from the pulpit, but if you ask me, if you ask me afterwards, I'll tell you a really funny story about I am what I am. Bill. So good. Thanks. You all should watch La Cage aux Folles. Watch the original in French. It's really great. And if you don't want to read the subtitles, the American version is also really fun. Okay, so La Cage aux Folles. Okay, announcements very quickly. We are over. It's like before times. We've not gone this long for a service in 2.5 years. That's really, yeah. So here we go. Quick announcements. As ever, we appreciate your financial support. We have wrapped up the annual campaign It doesn't mean that if you've not already turned in your financial commitment form that you don't have to do it, or you're too late and can't do it. It just means that we're going to have to start adjusting based on what we have actually committed in real time. So we're about, I think, $70,000 below what our goal was. So again, if you haven't turned in your form, Emmy especially, and Danny, anybody who's here from the Stewardship Committee would really appreciate not having to chase you. So do that. There's a couple forms on the welcome table. Jean Martin's memorial service is next Saturday at 11 o'clock. So you're not going to be able to make it, Maria. So come on out, and as we honor and grieve and celebrate Jean's life. There will be no yard sale this year, no tag sale. So that is a big adjustment, but I know that some of you are holding things in your basements. Have a tag sale at home and donate all that you earn to All Souls. That's the way that we can take care of that. There is a vocabulary list on the table, and here I think everybody forgot to bring pasta for the food pantry today. Did everybody forget? We'll do it next week. Don't forget. So next week we'll do it. We'll keep the tub out. Next week is Audrey Daniel's birthday. Audrey has a great tradition of providing a beautiful cake from You Take the Cake every year. Audrey, happy, happy, happy birthday, and thank you. And friends, this is our first coffee hour. So there is coffee, there is tea, there is cake, there is a new rug. Be careful of everything you are eating and drinking, and we'll see you next week. I think I'm preaching next week too. Yeah, see you next week.